Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. It's Thursday, and you know what that means? We have wide receiver rankings, tight end rankings, and we're going to throw some defenses at you as well to make sure that you are prepared for your matchups this week. Now, I hope you're buckled up and ready to rumble because we are going over 50 wide receivers in this video. We're going to make sure that you have all the knowledge and information that you could possibly need to make the best decisions for players in your lineups. So let's get into it with this week's wide receiver rankings. At number 1, we have Packers stud wideout Devonta Adams. Now, he definitely had a slow start in week 1. We saw him turn it on last week against Detroit, but it has been 2 games without a score. So give me a second. Yep, carry the 1. He's getting in this week. It's science. Sliding in at 2, Nuke Hopkins. He gets Jacksonville on the road. The Jags have already given up 4 touchdown passes this year. They have an abysmal passing defense. I love Nuke in this matchup. I think he has a chance to absolutely go off. At 3, the Cheetah, Tyreek Hill. He gets the Chargers. Now, we may want to temper expectations for him just slightly because the Chargers are a top 5 passing defense in yards per game surrendered, and they've only given up 1 passing touchdown so far on the season. He had a really rough week 2 where he only had 3 catches on 4 targets for a total of 14 yards, but I like him to rebound in this game. I think that Mahomes wants to get him involved after that slow week last week, and he is going to be just fine. At 4, it's Stefon Diggs, ex-Minnesota Viking. Now, he has Washington, and I told you guys that I think that this is a bounce-back week for Josh Allen, and of course, a huge part of that is Stefon Diggs. He is going to have a good game. He is solid. Don't worry about him. Rounding out the top 5, my little Cooper Kupp. He gets Tampa Bay, who has really struggled against the pass. He's averaging 8 catches on 11 targets, 135.5 yards. He's already got 3 touchdowns just 2 weeks in. You are starting him with confidence. The next couple of guys on this list have underperformed, maybe just slightly, but I'm not concerned, and I think they bounce back this week in big ways. So at 6, we have Justin Jefferson. He's got Seattle in this week. Jefferson has 19 targets on the year. Seattle is giving up nearly 300 yards passing a game. He is going to have a good one. And then at 7, Calvin Ridley. He goes on the road to see the Giants. There is a little bit of concern because he may have James Bradberry on him, but Terry McLaurin had Bradberry on him in week 2, and he did just fine. The talent is there for Ridley. I think he's just got too much to be able to bench him right now, and if he does not break out in this game, guys, he might be a trade target if owners are starting to panic on him. At 8, it's Tyler Lockett. He goes on the road to play my Vikings this week, who is a bottom 5 passing defense, so you love the matchup. And Lockett, guys, is on an impossible pace right now. 6 catches, 8 targets a game, 139 yards a game, and he already has 3 touchdowns. Now, we know in the past, Lockett has been a boomer bust option. Is this the week he busts? Possibly. However, we cannot bench him until we find out. He's locked and loaded in your starting lineups. At number 9, it's CeeDee Lamb. He gets Philadelphia at home. The Eagles with the number 1 pass defense in the NFL so far. I don't care. This guy is a stud, and we are playing him. At 10, we have Keenan Allen. Now, he gets Kansas City in what potentially could be a shootout game. The only concern that I really have is that Kansas City has only allowed 1 passing touchdown so far this year. Now, they did play Cleveland and Baltimore, who are both run-heavy offenses, so that concern is lessened a bit. I do really like Keenan Allen as a high-floor play, and he is going to be just fine in this one. Just outside of the top 10, we have DK Metpath sliding in at 11. We talked about that Vikings pass defense who has struggled significantly. Now, he hasn't quite done it yet, but I just got a bad feeling that this is the week Metcalf goes off. At 12, another guy who hasn't fully lived up to to his draft pedigree just yet, and that's A.J. Brown. He brings his 22.7% target share to Indianapolis. And I really like him in this game. I think that he is going to be just fine. The Colts have allowed 6 passing touchdowns on the year already. I expect one from A.J. Brown this week. At number 13, and finding himself just outside that wide receiver 1 range, Deebo Samuel makes an appearance. Now, he gets Green Bay at home. Brandon Ayuk so far has not looked great. He's probably still a little banged up. They use him as a decoy in week 1. And guys, Deebo Samuel right now leads the NFL in yards receiving. So he has been fantastic. I expect that to continue against a Packers defense that is allowing 3.5 touchdowns through the air a game. At 14, it's Allen Robinson II. He goes on the road against Cleveland. We know Baker Mayfield's banged up a little bit, but this is all about Justin Fields. He is going to be starting in this game. I think Robinson's slower start could make a turn because of it. I love the upside with Fields at quarterback. Cleveland allowing 282 yards passing a game. They've given up 5 touchdowns through the air, and I think this week Robinson could get one. At 15, it's Adam Thielen. This is all about the matchup at home against Seattle, but also his production so far. He's caught 15 out of 17 targets. He has 131 yards, 3 touchdowns so far this season. I expect him to continue to produce. At 16, it's Chris Godwin. Now, he has been solid this year. He's averaging 9 targets, 83.5 yards per game, but they do get their toughest matchup of the year. They go on the road to play the Rams, who have allowed just 1 touchdown pass. Now, they've played the Bears and the Colts, so we take that with a grain of salt. However, they have been spectacular as a passing defense overall. There's a little concern, but I like Godwin the best out of the wide receivers for the Bucks. Speaking of Rams, we have Robert Woods coming in at number 17. He gets that Tampa Bay defense who has allowed 703 yards passing and 5 touchdowns in just 2 weeks. Now, we don't love that Bobby Trees has only had 13 targets in 2 games, but I expect Matthew Stafford to have to air it out a lot, and I expect him to look to Robert Woods. The player and the matchup are just too good to pass up. At 18, we have DJ Moore. He goes on the road to Houston. I love everything about this matchup besides the fact that David Mills is starting for Houston. And game script could definitely go against DJ Moore, but because of his production, because of what he has been able to accomplish with those 19 targets on the year so far, and his 75% contested catch rate, which is fire, I am starting DJ Moore. At 19, Scary Terry McLaurin. Now, he has a rough matchup this week against Buffalo. I hate the matchup, but I love the player enough to bank on the talent. The Bills have allowed just 1 passing touchdown in the entire season and only 370 passing yards overall. I don't care. I'm putting F1 McLaurin in my lineup. Rounding out the top 20 as we get on our lower end of that wide receiver 2 range, I have Amari Cooper against Philadelphia. Now, they're at home. You don't love this matchup, and we talked about that. So he's a riskier play than you'd like, especially as we saw him struggle a little bit last week. However, he's got 22 targets on the season, which makes him worth a start as a low-end wide receiver 2. At 21, Mike Williams slides in as a low-end wide receiver 2, guys. Now, I'm not great at math, but when I look at a 25% target share for Mike Williams so far, we know that I'm predicting a lot of points to be scored in this game. That means he's going to be a solid wide receiver 2. He's going to produce for you guys this week. I expect him to get plenty of targets once again. Now, as we move down this list, I have grouped some players who I feel are usually in similar rankings, and I want to touch on them quickly for you guys so I can give you the best information as quickly as possible. At 22, I have T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. They both go on the road, of course, to Pittsburgh. The Steelers have given up 652 yards passing and 3 touchdowns so far on the year. That is where they are most susceptible. Now, I think Higgins is the preferred option, if only slightly, and that's due to his 26% target share, but I like both of these guys in week 3. Number 23 is Hollywood Brown. He gets an excellent matchup on the road against Detroit. Brown is averaging 6 catches on 8 targets for 91 yards and a touchdown a game. So you love that production he's had so far. The Lions are allowing 285 yards passing, 3 passing touchdowns a game. Doesn't get much better than that. You start Hollywood with confidence. Julio Jones rounds out our wide receiver 2s at number 24. He gets Indianapolis. We talked about the Colts being just a so-so passing defense. Jones was able to turn it up a little bit last week after he really struggled in week 1. I expect that to continue, and the upside for Jones is really, really good. He could break out again. Finding himself just out of that wide receiver 2 range, but still making it into our top 25 is Mike Evans. We talked about that excellent Rams defense, and I think that there's some concern that Jalen Ramsey actually shadows Evans in this game, and we know that the roller coaster ride for Mike Evans owners. He's been up, he's been down. I think this might potentially be a down week for him, but he has too much upside to pass up. You're still starting him in week 3. Continuing to climb up the rankings and finding himself at number 26 is Sterling Shepard. He gets Atlanta this week. You can't ask for a better matchup. The Falcons allowing a league high 8 touchdown passes through 2 weeks. And this guy not only has a very high floor, but I think he's got good upside as well. He's averaging 9.5 targets a game, over 103 yards per game, and I think he's going to have another solid game in that kind of high-end wide receiver 3 range with upside. At number 27, it's Cortland Sutton. He gets the Jets at home. Last week with Jerry Jeudy out, he had a ridiculous 35% target share, and he had 159 yards. Now, you don't love the matchup with the Jets. They're a top 10 overall passing defense and have only allowed 1 passing touchdown, but I still think Sutton does enough to warrant that wide receiver 3 status. At number 28, it's Marvin Jones Jr. Now, he gets the Cardinals this week. We know Arizona's going to put up points, and I think the Jags are going to have to air it out to try to keep up. The Cards are in the bottom half of the league so far with 4 touchdowns surrendered through the air, and I think with Jones's 20 targets coming into this game, he continues to see those looks. At 29, I've kind of jumbled in all 3 wide receivers for the Steelers. So we have Deontay Johnson, we have Juju Smith-Schuster, and Chase Claypool. They go against Cincinnati at home. Now, Deontay right now is battling a knee injury. We're not exactly sure what's going on with him, and Big Ben is banged up too. So we need to keep an eye on reports for this offense. I think that if Deontay Johnson plays, you can bump him up just a little bit. You like him the most out of these 3 receivers. And if Deontay Johnson sits in this game, guys, I really like Juju and Chase Claypool as lower end but high upside wide receiver 2s. And speaking of health concerns, at 30, Odell Beckham Jr. slides in. Now, he gets a pretty solid matchup against Chicago, who are bottom 12 so far in the league against the pass. And we know Jarvis Landry is out for at least 3 weeks. So the targets are there. The opportunity is going to be there, but we don't know if OBJ is going to be there. So keep an eye out if he plays. I like him as a low-end wide receiver 3 with some solid upside. If you're enjoying this video so far, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it, guys. And now, let's get back to some more rankings. As we head outside our top 30, we're at that range where our confidence level lowers, but we are looking for upside hits. I think that starts at 31 with Devonta Smith. This is not about what he's done so far in the year, although he did have a solid week 2, but so far on the season, just 15 targets, 87 yards for Devonta Smith, but it's all about the matchup here. He gets the Cowboys, who are the 2nd worst team through the air so far this year. I think that the upside is too big to pass up, and I'm hoping that he hits on a long pass or is able to break one. I still think that there's risk, but he's worth it at that price. At 32, it's a pair of Colts receivers. So we have Michael Pittman Jr. and Zach Pascal. Now, they get Tennessee, and we know that someone is going to score against Tennessee. They have been abysmal through the air. They've given up 632 yards. They've given up 3 touchdown passes per game, and T.Y. Hilton and Paris Campbell are both out. I like Pittman a little bit more. However, Pascal's the one with the touchdowns. He's got 3 of them on the year. I think one of these guys balls out. I'm not sure who it is. Shoot your shot on one of these guys. Tumbling all the way down to 33, and it is no fault of his own, is Brandon Cooks. He gets Carolina at home this week, and this is all about them losing their starting quarterback. David Mills slides in. I am not confident, nor do I want to play really anyone in this offense. Now, I'll admit I could be completely off on this because he does have 21 targets, 210 yards, and a touchdown so far this year. I just have a bad feeling David Mills on a Thursday night on a short week at 34, and right now it is trending towards him not playing, but we need to keep an eye on it, is Antonio Brown. It looks like he did test positive for COVID. He still has the potential to come back if he can get a couple of negative tests, but I don't expect that to happen. And if he's out, right, we talked about how much we like Godwin and we like Evans maybe a little more. As we round out our wide receiver threes, at 35 we have Kenny Golidy. We talked about the incredible matchup against Atlanta. Now his 50% catch rate so far this year has been brutal, but he does have a really solid average depth of target, so he can turn some of those targets into catches. We're gonna see him start to produce at a better rate. 14 targets through 2 games isn't horrible, and there is not a better matchup than this, so maybe Babytron makes an appearance. Sliding in at number 36, and our final wide receiver 3 is Rondale Moore. Now he gets Jacksonville on the road, and I'm not sure that he can keep up what he's doing right now. He's 11 catches on 13 targets, 182 yards, and a tutty. However, the upside here is too much to pass up on against a bottom 7 Jags passing defense. At 37, and this is merely because of the matchup, it is the pair of receivers out of Jacksonville we haven't talked about yet in DJ Chark Jr. and Laviska Shenault. We know that one of these guys is going to be the number 2 wide receiver in this offense. We're not sure who it's going to be. I think it's a boom or a bust pick for both of these guys. Chark is the better option in my opinion. I would feel much more comfortable with him as a low-end wide receiver 3. At 38, it's Sammy Watkins. He had a great week 1, not so much week 2. So this is a great matchup, and he could easily outperform this, or like we've seen in the past, he could bust. Are you feeling lucky with Sammy Watkins this week? That's what it comes down to, and that's decision I'm gonna let you guys make. Kind of the same situation at number 39. We have Corey Davis against Denver. Now they're on the road. It is a tough matchup. We saw an awesome week 1 from Corey Davis, and then he completely disappeared. Also, did you guys see Zach Wilson last week? Maybe gives me pause to start Davis this week. At 40, we have the number 1 wide receiver for the New England Patriots. He has a fairly safe floor. He gets New Orleans this week. The upside isn't huge. He does have 15 targets. He's turned that into just 82 yards so far in 2 weeks. The matchup is okay, so I don't hate Jacoby here, but he's more than likely going to give you 6 to 8. At 41, we go to the Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver group, and that's going to be Henry Ruggs III, Hunter Renfrow, and Bryan Edwards. Now they get a Miami defense who is top 10 against the pass so far, but we know that the Raiders cannot run, especially if Josh Jacobs misses this game. Ruggs is the boomer bust option. Renfrow has that safe floor, but not a ton of upside. And the wild card in this one is Bryan Edwards. I like them in that order, and if you have any of them, that is the lens that you're looking when you're making the decision. Now, the last couple receivers that we're gonna talk about before we get into notable omissions, at 42, I have Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley. The pair gets Washington this week, who's a top 10 passing defense, so that's not great, but I think these guys are gonna be just fine. I think the upside lies in Sanders. I think the floor is with Beasley. Guys that we didn't cover and that I am benching this week are going to be all Miami Dolphin receivers. Now, this is all about the quarterback, right? I have a hard pass on Jacoby Brissett, so Devontae Parker, Jalen Waddle, Will Fuller. I am passing on these guys this week. We'll look to see if Tua comes back next week or to see how Jacoby produces, but I am not comfortable with these guys in my lineup. Toby Anderson, I just don't like the game flow potential in this one. I think that Carolina could easily rely on the run. because Houston may be in trouble from the get-go. Now, he could have a solid day. I could be completely wrong on that. It's just a gut feeling. I'm benching Robbie Anderson. Finally, Mecole Hardman, he gets the Chargers. I just don't love his lack of consistency, and I think this is a off week for him as they look to get Tyreek Hill more involved. And then finally for Denver, the combination of Tim Patrick and KJ Hamler against the Jets defense, who we said already was above average. I don't love the matchup, and I don't feel comfortable with either of these guys because we're not sure how those targets are going to be split up. I like Patrick a little bit more, but I am passing on both of these guys in week 3. And that's the list that I have for you guys today. Thank you for joining me. I greatly appreciate your support. Later on this afternoon, we're going to bust out some tight ends and defenses, so keep your eyes out for that. Until next time, this is Relentless Press. I am your host, Abraham Opatz. We'll see you next time.